Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name is Ross, and as always told, out of Voice Radio. So today, we are continuing our look at the rotation, our comprehensive look at the rotation. Links in the description to the other videos. We are looking at all the cards that are going away in Generations. Now, Generations was a weird little set because it was a celebratory set. You couldn't just go and buy booster packs of Generations. You had to actually go and buy special sets, and now Generations is leaving. So, usual categories: Fringe, You Used to Be Cool, and Big Losses. Though it is worth pointing out, of course, that a bunch of these cards were reprints from other sets which are also rotating. So in terms of Fringe Plays, we are losing the Creepshow Gengar. We did mention this in our breakthrough video, so I'm not going to go into huge detail now. It was a nice card that should have been a fun rogue deck, and we've been trying to make it work, but it just never did. We are losing Dugtrio, which actually originally came around in X and Y quite a few years ago now at this point. It was a fun little card, 1 fighting energy, 60 damage, 10 to each of your bench. Did see play in the past with cards like Reshiram and Zekrom, which did come back around in Shining Legends. You damage them while they're on their bench, then they come in for a double colourless energy, do a bunch of damage using Outrage. Fun little deck, and it has top cut some tournaments, just not for a very long time. And I need to give a shout out to my boy here. We're losing Golem EX. I like Golem. Golem was my original third favourite Pokemon. The EX was never particularly good. It was way too expensive to actually ever work. But when I went and commentated the last ever Italian National Championships, I bought an Italian box and I got myself an Italian Golem. Even if no one else does, I will miss this card. Moving on to You Used to Be Cool, Meowstic EX, a card that for a weirdly specific period of time became really, really good. Because what happened was that we ended up in a format where Gyarados was really big. But Gyarados ended up just 10 HP short of getting some key KOs. So take something like Darkrai with a Fighting Fury belt. It's got 220 HP, and with 3 Magikarp, each of which had 2 damage counters, and a choice band you were hitting, 210. So what do? You actually bring in Meowstic here, just to move 1 damage counter over onto Darkrai, and actually allow yourself to get a KO. It was an EX which only came around in Generations and didn't see a huge amount of play, but there was a time when Gyarados decks really needed to hit 220 and they just couldn't do it without Meowstic. For that reason, it was actually a really good card, and then it went away and was never heard from again. Raichu, another card which actually originally came out in X and Y. Raichu, for a double colourless energy, did 20 damage for all of your benched Pokemon. It saw a little bit of play at one point with Golbat, which incidentally enough was also reprinted in Generations. We'll talk about that in a moment. And it was much better with Skyfield when you could have a bench of 8 rather than 5. It was a fun card, saw a little bit of play here and there, free retreat and all that, but has been off the radar for a while now. Originally, the money card from Generations was Jolteon EX. Now, Jolteon has since been reprinted as a full art in a special collection, but there was a small period of time where Jolteon was really good because of Flash Ray. 70 damage, and next turn you could not be damaged by basic Pokemon. And there was a time when the format was full of stuff like Yveltal and like Volcanion, where it really was just a whole bunch of EXs, all of which of course were basic Pokemon. And it was really good. People actually had to play Pokemon Ranger just to get around it. It was a fun card. And then, like so many things before it, the format moved on, evolutions came out, it didn't do enough damage, etc. And it was gone forever. Remember how I mentioned Golbat earlier? Golbat was weird, right? Because Golbat got a reprint in Generations, but Crobat didn't. Golbat, you evolve up, put 2 damage counters down. Crobat, you evolve up, put 3 damage counters down. Reprinting Golbat without Crobat really was just a way of saying, hey, remember those cards you used to like? Yeah, you can't play them anymore. We have got spiritual successors now in the form of Frogadier and Greninja GX from Forbidden Light, so the abilities live on, even if the Pokemon themselves are gone. Weirdly enough, we also had a Jinx, which was, for a very small period of time, a little bit playable. What it allowed you to do was just heal 10 damage from your active Pokemon. It did see a little bit of play with Seismitoad, I mean, what didn't, to be perfectly honest, but it was just something to throw off the numbers a little bit, stop your opponent getting KOs that they would otherwise be getting. Fun little card, saw a little bit of play, but it was never one that we went crazy for. It's not going to be the hugest loss ever. We are also losing Flareon EX, a card, another one of these EXs which was exclusive to Generations, which did see a bit of play here and there. The ability said you could move a fire energy from one of your Pokemon to this one, and then free energy, 50 damage plus 20 more for each fire energy attached to this Pokemon. And it did see a little bit of play for a while. It saw play with stuff like Volcanion, hey Nick, so you could get the energy on the field and move it over, and it hit for pretty big damage, but then as inevitably happens, there were just better Pokemon, and nowadays you would never play this over something like a Ho-Oh, which means that Flareon is unfortunately gone forever. And we are losing what were essentially reprints of the first Gardevoir EX and Mega Gardevoir EX. Now, these ones were overshadowed eventually by the ones from Steam Siege, which is a little bit sad, but it did a huge amount of damage. You just piled a whole bunch of energy on the field, often using something like a Xerneas, and then you just hit for big damage. It was fun. It saw a fair amount of play, it saw a fair amount of success, it top cut a whole bunch of tournaments, and really, what more could you want? Plus, the artwork was amazing. In terms of big losses, there aren't any huge losses. Generation sees very little play in tournaments at the moment. But we are losing Mr. Mime. Now, we did talk about Mr. Mime in our breakthrough video, so we don't need to go into a huge amount of detail. But essentially, it stops bench Pokemon. We've still got Machoke from Guardians Rising, but that is a stage 1. And we've still got Forbidden Shrine, which is coming out in the next set, Celestial Storm. But that is a stadium, which means it can be bumped by Field Blower. It's a little bit sad, and Mr. Mime will be missed. We're also missing Evil Tower, which is finally rotating. Given that, I mean, come on. It literally was released in X and Y, and has been reprinted like 20 times since. It's not like Dugtrio that just got one cheeky reprint. It's finally going. And probably the biggest loss in the entire set, we are losing Wobbuffet. When Wobbuffet's in the active, non-psychic Pokemon cannot use abilities. It was really, really big. It was great in hit and run decks. I mean, it still is in expanded with something like Donphan. And I mean, look, it was ability lock. We're also losing Garbodor, so our ability lock options at the moment are looking very thin. I've said it in a few videos, but we've got Alolan Muck, but only for basics. We've got Glaceon, but only for EXs. And we've got Slacking coming, but only when Slacking is in the active. Our ability locking options are a lot sadder than they were before the rotation. In terms of trainer cards, I mistakenly reported in my Headlines of Rotation video that we are losing Crushing Hammer. That is, of course, not true, because Crushing Hammer did get a reprint in Sun and Moon. We are losing Evo Soda. Evo Soda is a card which has actually seen a lot of play lately with Zoroark decks, giving you that little bit of extra speed to get all of those Zoroarks out nice and early. And, I mean, on the one hand, yes, we do expect Zoroark decks to miss this. On the other hand, we're moving into a big one-hit KO format with Pokemon like Buzzwole, and I expect Zoroark to see quite a lot less play. We are losing Olympia, which did see a little bit of play for a while, switching and healing 30. Kind of nice, but it hasn't seen play in a while. We're losing Pokemon Center Lady, get rid of all special conditions, heal 60. Again, not a card that's seen a lot of play lately, but a card that has seen a lot of play since it's been out. We're not losing Pokemon Fan Club. because Pokemon Fan Club has been reprinted in Forbidden Light. Not that I think that's really going to make a huge difference, because even though we're losing Bridget, our turn 1 Tapu Lele for a Wonder Tag play after rotation, I do very strongly believe will be Steven's decision. So there we go. We're losing Revitalizer, which is really nice recovery in grass decks, but really since Forest of Giant Plants was banned, it's just not as good as it used to be. It used to be so much more useful. Unfortunately, it's not anymore. We are losing Red Card, which is just nice disruption. Put your opponent down to a hand of 4 cards. Yeah, we're still keeping Judge, but Judge is a supporter card. It's so much more difficult to use. This was nice disruption. We're losing Shauna, but we're getting Cynthia. We've already got it. It's better. And we're getting Tate and Liza, which is literally a Shauna, but you could, if you want, choose to use it as a switch instead. We are losing Team Flare Grunt, which again is a really nice disruption card that sees a lot of play in disruption decks, and that will be missed because it does, like I say, it sees a lot of play. And we are losing Wily, which makes me a little bit sad. That turn 1 evolution is now gone forever, or at least for the time being. This only really ever saw play in Trevenant, although I thought it had a lot of potential in other decks, and it's seen very, very little play in the past year. But it's still sad to see it go. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is all the cards you need to know about that are losing, rotating, running away, going away, leaving us from Generations. So now it's time to hear from you guys. Which of these cards are you going to be missing? What are your thoughts on the rotation? And like all the rotation videos, I am asking you to please tell me one card that you are going to miss from this set more than any others. Go nuts, be nice. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all of that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do just that. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves. Until next time, thank you very much for watching. My name is Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.